People already waiting.
Oh, we got a few people waiting. Looks like the stream's live.
Yes, we are. Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Viking Samurai and Terrible Tim's channel. And my channel is also linked on here. That's the Weird News channel. Tim should be on in a minute. He's just coming in from shopping. But we have an amazing guest, Paul Bartholomew. He is a Bigfoot researcher and has done some extensive studies and talked to anthropologists. And Paul, tell us, who have you talked to about this subject? Where have you kind of gone for finding your evidence?
Right. Well, I've done this for about half a century now. It seems terrible to say that, but witnesses, scientists, researchers, writers, we've created a large variety of sources connected to the world of what this is called is cryptozoology, the search for hidden animals.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Paul, quick question. Like,
Sure.
how did you get involved in this world, like becoming an author and researcher and everything?
Well, I was always interested in this type of topic, but back in the 1970s, there was a major UFO incident that occurred in Glen Lake, New York, in which something landed on at a restaurant and left circular rings and then took off again. And it was at the height, at the end, I should say, of a major UFO flap that occurred throughout this country. That involved Pascagoula, Mississippi, with Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. That was in October. There was the Coin helicopter case. Some very highly credible cases that occurred that same year. And from there on, I was hooked. And once you're introduced into the UFO phenomena, you become introduced into other phenomena as well, such as cryptozoology and parapsychology, ghosts and hauntings and Bigfoot and cryptids and things. And so that's pretty much how I began, because in 1973, we had the UFO landing. And then in 1976, in August, we had a major Bigfoot outbreak on Abair Road. That's Abair Road in rural Whitehall, New York. And we always thought back in the 70s of Bigfoot being something from the Pacific Northwest, California, British Columbia, and so forth. In actuality, we had Bigfoot in our own backyard here in New York State. And then when we delved into the topic, we found out there's a huge history of Bigfoot type encounters in this area, going back to the Algonquin and the Iroquois. There are legends of stone giants, giant men of the mountains, Wendigos, and so forth. And even Samuel Champlain talked about the Gugu, which was a Native American creature that was relayed to him that he wrote about in his journals. So there's a rich history there, right from that time period right on to this 1976 encounter, which involved several police agencies. And then we had another major police outbreak that occurred in 1982 when my neighbor Dan Gordon had a sighting with his partner right here on the outskirts of Whitehall. So those types of cases brought me into the various topics.
Wow.
Real quick question. Champlain, did he also see the lake monster? Was he the one in Champlain? Was he also the one who saw that?
Right. There's a huge history for the Lake Champlain monster, what they called Champ. And Joe Zarzinski had done quite a bit of research into that. And there's a whole host of historical encounters that occurred. And I know that was one of the claims. We have sturgeons and things like that in Lake Champlain, and that can account for the bumps, the humps in the water and so forth. But the head and neck sightings where the creature comes out of the water and looks around and goes back, those are the difficult ones to explain, almost, very serpentine-like. And those types of reports go back, again, hundreds of years. And so it's pretty much in those northern lakes, you have a whole host of lake monster reports. If you get up into Canada, you have Ogopogo and Igapogo and Ponique and some virtually unpronounceable names. We also have Lake Memphremagog, which has a monster as well. So there's a whole host of lake monster reports that has a huge monster resource here in Lake Champlain, which my town also borders on. So we're right in the heart of things.
Wow. Hey, Brian, can you go back real quick? I just want to address this one comment from the legendary Other Nathan. If you could put that up real quick. Okay, so real quick, man. He says, my dad has a clan of Bigfoot living on his property in Indiana. He has been on podcasts before. I don't know if this guy is just joking or messing around, or if maybe his dad's got like a huge property, right, with a ton of acreage. So if you're actually serious, email me more information at realvikingsamurai@gmail.com, because I would like to visit this property if you're not full of crap and you're not joking. And I'd like to talk to you more via email. So email me, realvikingsamurai@gmail.com, please. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So he says, I'm on your friends list on Facebook. We talk there. Okay. Okay. I got so many friends on Facebook now, so I'll have to find. Oh, send me a fresh message, dude. I got to look into this, man. But anyway, let's continue here. So, with all of the research that you've done, Paul, like, what have you, as of now, concluded about the existence of Bigfoot?
Well, I am open to any evidence. So if someone says they have a physical flesh and blood body, I'll be there as soon as they give me the call. And, I think that's the only way you're going to solve this mystery. And when you look at the whole history of the Bigfoot phenomena, it's different than things like the chupacabra. The chupacabra kind of began about the mid 90s forward, but the Bigfoot phenomena goes way back to Native American times, and you go to Chinese records, you can go back thousands of years and so forth. So the Bigfoot history Bigfoot research has a long history. And what I've found is that when I first started this, I was thinking probably some sort of unknown primate. But more and more as I went on and delved into some of these landmark cases and talked with witnesses, I saw a larger umbrella emerge of information dealing with other phenomena, such as the UFO, UAP phenomena, the different cryptids type of phenomena, and so forth. So if we were to take that 1976 encounter, and I have a headline here that's a perfect example. It's from the Post-Star in my local, the Glens Falls newspaper. It's called Officers Track Creature. That's how it was regarded in that newspaper that takes on this region. And it was about the Whitehall incident in which multiple police agencies, the Washington County Deputy Sheriffs, the New York State Trooper, and the Whitehall Police all responded to a report of a large creature on Abear Road. Over the course of about a week, we had as many as a dozen witnesses or more to this strange cryptid phenomena. But what was going on, and if we look at the Rutland Herald article, they talked about the UFO phenomena that was going on at the same time. So that was often underreported. But we had police sheriffs and deputy sheriffs that were citing objects. And when I looked at that perspective, we looked at Rockland County.
I'll be back.
Hey, the champ's here. Okay. Sorry about that, Paul, but go ahead.
The sightings went all the way down to Rockland County, and there were high alerts that were on, at the nuclear plant down there. And so we had this massive UFO flap occurring at exactly the time we had this creature outbreak. And then we had a separate report of a pterodon type creature that was sighted flying in the air.
Wow.
So all this phenomena occurring at once. And I think that was the base for widening my perspective. And I looked into the works of John Keel, from the Mothman prophecies.
Sure.
And, people like Brad Steiger, who had reported this type of phenomena years ago. It took me about 40 years to catch up to them. And they had reported on this same type of phenomena. So I think there is a connectivity between these phenomena. And I think it's readily on display when we look at areas like Skinwalker Ranch. So I think we're starting to widen our perspectives. And if we look into quantum physics and, the dark matter and all these major discoveries that have been made just in the past couple of decades, and we widen our perspective a little, I think we're starting to see that there's a much broader picture going on. We should have not just a body, but we should have maybe 100 bodies of creatures because they're sighted all over the world, but we don't. And I think there's a reason for that. And I think that's that there's a larger perspective that we have to take into consideration that actually makes these creatures so elusive.
Brian, go with your scientific argument here,
Yeah.
kind of related to what
So
Paul just said.
I think what and just to support what Paul's saying, I have a background in biological studies, and you have to have a breeding population in order to have a breeding population, in particular primates, so you don't have genetic because if you're inbreeding so much, you'll genetically end up creating so many deformities that you no longer can exist as a species. So the biodiversity becomes an argument. You got to have, and I do believe, and I think we talked about this, and somebody can correct me, maybe like with primates, at least 10,000 breeding population, somewhere around there. So that would obviously, if something's 10 feet tall, 8 feet tall, and you track animals through their scat or their poop. So you would find massive amounts of poop. They are obviously going to have to ingest a large amount of calories. So they'd be eating a lot, and that would leave them exposed because they're going to be foraging. You would see them out in the open. They're just too big to be well camouflaged from hunters and just casual observers. So talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, very. If you approach this from the strictly scientific biological point of view, those are all very valid points. And we do have reports of them eating. We do have reports of scat. We have, so we have a very physical component connected to these creatures, as well as a very strange component where tracks might end in the middle of a field, that these are seen in conjunction with UFO or UAP reports, and that there's a large history of that as well. So there appear to be both physical and metaphysical characteristics to this phenomena.
So let me ask you a question. So everybody's watched The Predator, right? What if what we're seeing is their form of camouflage or whatever? Like it's a ghillie suit. I don't know. I mean, it's a rabbit hole to go down there, but we're talking about Bigfoot, so anything is open. But this could be something they wear for camouflage, and what we're seeing is just something that they would use so they can walk amongst us, and when they have to, they become invisible.
Yeah, there's different types of camouflage techniques that we know that the Navy had used for years when they were developing, trying to develop things to avoid radar and try to make them seem narrower than they are, a narrower target. We know that was stealth technology as well. We know there's blankets that you can put up to yourself that display what's in back of you, in front of you. And so you get that mystical look. We know that has probably been applied to aircraft as well. And so we do have these technologies that are coming into play, and it's a fascinating thing. And there may be some sort of unknown biological component going on here that we're not quite sure of as well. We have reports of red glowing eyes, which was a 1975 encounter in Whitehall that was a year before Bear, that I absolutely believe is 100% genuine. I knew the person that had the sighting. And it was a characteristic that if you were going to create a sighting, you wouldn't put that in. And so I think there's other things going on here too as well that are still unknown.
Sorry for coming in late, guys.
Oh, you're good, Tim. Hey, quick question. Tim, do you believe in Tim?
I had to get Shania some food and stuff, and I had to go somewhere. I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, you're good, man. Do you believe in Bigfoot, Tim?
No.
You don't believe in Bigfoot? Dude, there's so much evidence, man.
I believe that long time ago there was really large animals and everything back then. Wait a minute, that means I believe in Bigfoot then.
Yeah, sure.
I do believe it was really big animals a long time ago. And history says that it is, documentation and stuff. Shows bones and everything shows that with big animals back then. So I think it was. It was back then.
So Tim, you would believe in the past they had a creature called giant Pithecus. I think that's how. If we had a look at an early primate or a relative of, if you believe in the whole evolutionary thing, that was really massive. It would have looked like a Bigfoot, right, Paul? I mean, you're probably more of an expert on Gigantopithecus, right? That was called
right. Right.
I seen it the other day. I seen it the other day. They had these pictures of a I don't know, it was a person here, and then it looked real, and they had the big picture of the big ape-like looking person with long hair and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Grover Krantz would have called it Gigantopithecus, and Dr. Cook, who I studied under at Capstan College in Vermont, he was thought it might be Australopithecus. There's other people that claim that this is just some sort of strange gorilla, and others that claim it's more of a paranormal creature. So we have all those theories right on the table at this point.
It looked real to me.
Hey, let's just address this comment real quick. Legendary Other Nathan. My dad literally has fresh tracks on his property every night. He sent hair in and was DNA tested. It came back half human DNA and half ape. Dude, message me on Facebook. I'm gonna record going over there and interview him if that's okay, and record my whole journey on your dad's Bigfoot property. But anyway, Paul, question. What do you think is the best evidence we've had yet of Bigfoot?
I think it's the cumulative evidence, eyewitness testimony. There's, you could take 100 witnesses and whittle it down to 4 or 5 that are just impeccable, and the circumstances are impeccable. It means that those 100 cases may be all legit, but these are the top of the top. And I have sightings that I believe are confirmation moments, like the Abear Road incident and the Cliff Sparks encounter and so forth. And so I think the best witness, the best evidence is eyewitness. However, we have plaster castings from around the world. I've got a few here. I don't know how they'll show up here on the camera here, but this is one.
Hey, Paul, real quick,
wow.
Wasn't the Survivor Man? Is that he encountered one right up in Alaska?
I think he even had an entire series dedicated to a Bigfoot phenomenon. Shroud, I forget what his name was, Shroud, or but yeah. But this is if we look at the phenomenon, it's global. So if we go to China, we have this, which is a 19-inch casting of the Chinese creature, which is called the Che Ren, or the Wild Man. Just trying to do that. So in my neck of the woods, we would have Bigfoot encounters. This is a casting from West Rutland in 1985. Shows the 5 toes very clearly, the pressure ridges and so forth.
Get my phone.
Yeah, that one's really wide. The other one was super long. Like, how big is Shaquille O'Neal's feet compared to is his feet 19 inches?
24 inches.
His foot's bigger than Bigfoot?
I just was checking it out the other day. Dave. The other day I was just checking it out, and he wears a 24 or 5.
That's ridiculous, man.
What'd you say?
Paul,
24.
Can you show that last cast again?
Yes.
So looking at that one, and you tell me, Paul, is that more reminiscent of a bear print that maybe elements exposed it?
Well, this was taken in conjunction with a sighting of the creature by multiple.
Oh, okay.
And it was made in a gravel road, which we estimated the weight of the creature to be over 400 pounds to put that impression in. This is one of 6 impressions, of 3 of which were cast. And you can see this is the clearest one, showing the pressure ridges. Hard to show it here. But
there was a whole study on that, right? There was a guy who was an anthropologist who looked at the wrinkles or some structure that were indicative of a primate and were anatomically proper,
right,
where the pressure would go. Am I right?
Yeah. Dr. Krantz at Washington University, who's passed on, Grover Krantz. He used to reconstruct the anatomical bones and so forth of the foot with some sightings. And you got Jeff Meldrum, who's at Idaho University, and he has done the same thing. These are the other 2 casts from that Rutland case. Wow. So talking about an eyewitness sighting with footprints that were left, and they measured about 14 inches in length. Now, the first casting was about 19 inches from China, where they're called the Che Ren, or the Wild Man. And we get 19 inches and 14 inches a lot. Some people would theorize full-grown male and full-grown female, but we get the sizes in between. And we do have some that would appear to be Shaquille O'Neal size as well, but they're much rarer as you get beyond 19. So physical evidence, we're talking, the footprint evidence is pretty interesting. The eyewitness testimony in certain cases what I call confirmation sightings I think that's impeccable. For instance, I'll give you a quick confirmation sighting. 1982, a fellow I went to school with who was my neighbor, Dan Gordon, is on patrol in Whitehall, New York. And it's February. They would go out to South Bay, turn around and come back while on patrol. And while they came back, a creature crossed the road in front of their cruiser. Dan pulls over. He gets out of the vehicle, draws his weapon, tries to pursue the creature. It's long gone. His other partner stayed in the car, never got out of the car. They both confirmed it. They both brought me back to the site, showed me where it happened. And for 20 years, I couldn't say his name. He was anonymous law enforcement official because he didn't want to be connected to the stigma attached to someone seeing these strange creatures. So that's one of those confirmation cases. Now, since then, Dan has passed on, but before he did, he took a polygraph, passed. He did a forensic sketch artist drawing of the creature, which he did actually in my living room with an accomplished sketch artist. And I can remember when they did that sketch, it took hours to do the sketch of the creature. She finally said to him, Dan, I want you to put your face over the drawing, and I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think what this was, what it looked like in your mind, and then tell me how close we are on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'll never forget, Dan did that, and he said 9.5, he says, because a 10 is up here. So it was a life-changing moment for Dan Gordon, and one that he didn't want. You know, he was the last person to want to see one of these creatures, and yet that road cross sighting is one of the most common. And for the skeptic that says it's somebody crossing the roads, both officers confirmed to me that the creature crossed the road in 3 steps. And that takes it right out of the realm of someone in a suit or anything. My brother's 6'1", tried to elongate steps without a suit on, tried to elongate the steps and cross the road. It took 6 steps to get across the road. So now we're talking about something completely different, very, very strong sighting, good witnesses, and something that a skeptic has a hard time to just throw out.
So
I'm trying to find pictures, Brian, real quick. I'm trying to find pictures where they compared this 6, like he had to be like 6 foot 6'13", well, what, 7 something, 8 something.
Yeah, okay.
Compared to this other guy. That's what I was looking on this for. I seen the other guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. That's a good, nice. If it's the Gigantopithecus, that's always an interesting comparison to Bigfoot and how much they do correlate. But the one thing, and Tim, this might draw you in, and Benjamin had wrote here, I have the comment up about the biblical references. And now you might be able to help me here, Paul. I don't know if it's the book of Enoch or it was in the Bible itself where the brothers were born and one was born with hair all over, right? Right. Is it the book of Enoch or is it in, and Tim may know this too. I don't know.
I think it is, yeah.
You mean you or David might know that?
No, I'm saying it's in the Bible. The Bible talks about a birth, and there were 2 sons, if I'm correct. And one was born with it. Now, somebody might be able to address that in the comments.
It wasn't Cain and Abel.
Cain and Abel. Now, it might be in the book of Enoch, one of the Gnostic books, ones that were taken out of the Bible. So there are biblical references, too, along with giants, right? There were giants in the earth in those days and stuff.
Sure. And you know, there's a thing called hypertrichosis. And that is basically the dog-faced boy from the circus genre. And you have the excessive hair growth all over the body. Normal, it's just a genetic disorder. But that can attribute to some of the, someone being ostracized from a group. You can see where that could happen.
Yeah, it could be a combination of that person being ostracized, hairy, and then he's also just like genetically a tall person, and they sent him out in the forest, and there you go, he's Bigfoot. A question, Paul. This is from the legendary Other Nathan. He said, "You may know my dad, Dan Dennis. Do you know a guy named Dan Dennis?"
I may. I'm not sure. I've got a large Facebook friend list, probably about 1,000. I very well could be.
I'm going to visit this guy's property and document it because he's saying, the Bigfoots are there all the time. There's footprints, there's hair. Like I'm going to document my trip if the guy's in Indiana, man.
But that's my thing is if Bigfoot, if they that big, they should be easy to find.
I mean, yeah, you would.
Yeah.
They would think they'd be a little easier to find.
You know, they got these drones out and everything. They should be able to find Bigfoot.
I agree with that. I think that one of the last discussions I had with Brad Steiger was about this, and we both agreed that we should have bodies by now, and we don't. But the fact is that the sightings are solid. They're absolutely credible, and I'll give you an example of another confirmation sighting that takes it into a different realm. There were 2 Hong Kong nationals that worked at the Chinese restaurant here in Whitehall, and they were out fishing, and they were fishing up in the Dresden Clemens area in back of a tavern. And they told me, geez, we saw this creature up there. And I thought, wow. I said, and they described it. They said the creature was wading through the water at chest level, looked like a gorilla and dark colored and so forth, and was wading away from them. And I said to him, I go, wow, what did you guys do? And he said, well, we went fishing. In other words, in his cultural heritage, where he was from, it wasn't unusual to see a primate. He just was surprised we had him here. And so that sighting, they didn't even realize how important their sighting was. And they just went ahead and went fishing. So that's one of those confirmation sightings that you get and you go, yeah, there's something going on here.
But Bruce Gash, you see what he's saying, Brian?
Go back to that comment, Brian.
Yep.
You seen it, David?
Yeah. Why in
Nobody
this
has a
day and
picture.
age has no one snapped a picture? We've been carrying around cameras for 25 years, so you think we'd have some really good video or pictures, right?
There's a few out there. The Patterson film from 1967, taken October the 20th by Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson. And
I seen him the other day.
yeah, very famous film. It's been analyzed all over the world. There's been, it's widely controversial. It's probably the most controversial anthropological film ever taken. And to this day, Bob Gimlin is still with us. And he, to this day, says that that's 100% legitimate. And the interesting thing here is that Bob Gimlin could very easily make a lot of money if he were to come out and say, this is how we hoaxed it. Mm-hmm. And I know there was a producer that asked him that. He says, look, we're willing to pay $1 million if you'll do this, because they'll make more than that in the revenue for a movie or documentary on it. And he said, I'd love to take your money, but this is real. And so I think I think the Patterson film is pretty good. We had the Vermont trail cam picture. If someone Googles that, it will come right up. Frank Sienski had set up a trail cam to see what was taking his apples, and it was on a minute interval, and it took this picture of this very large creature that appeared to be grabbing apples. And but it was, it's not the most pristine picture taken at night and so forth, and the creature's moving, but I think that's a real picture as well. So we do have a few pictures. The problems that we're facing is that it's largely a nocturnal creature. So you got to have one of those chance encounters in the day to really get a pristine picture. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the pictures are nighttime type pictures. But I would say that the Patterson film has a very good chance of being legitimate. And I think I know the Frank Sienski footage in Vermont, that trail cam picture is absolutely legitimate. It's just a matter of what it is.
I wish I'd have known what the subject was, because I swear I just got finished 2 or 3 days in a row watching on this phone. I was trying to, and I seen it, and they had pictures that looked really real. And the guy was like 10, 12 feet tall, and they had other guys shorter than him, and it looked real. It looked really real. It looked real and stuff. And I said, that can't be fake. You had both of them had long hair, beards, everywhere, and the other short guy had long. So now you don't know where those pictures at?
No, but back then humans were bigger than usual.
Oh, she said, but back then humans was bigger than usual. But I swear, I looked at it and it looked real. They had real pictures. It looked like the guy was like 6'11", 7'10" and stuff, and they had long hair, and the other guys were shorter than them. But the majority of them, their skin were black. They were dark.
Okay. Paul, question, like, what is your theory on Bigfoot? Like, do you think I know you said he's connected to probably other phenomena like UFOs. Do you think he's like an alien? Do you think he's like an alien pet? Do you think he lives in Hollow Earth? Do you think he's interdimensional? Like, what do you think, man?
Let me throw this idea out at you, because the one-dimensional or three-dimensional response would be, well, they drop them off or something. I don't think we're dealing with that. I think there's a connectivity between the phenomena. For instance, if you were to apply states of matter to this, scientific states of matter to this phenomena, let's take water. Everybody agrees water exists. I drink water. I took a shower with water. I could describe it in a million different ways. A tranquil brook, or a roaring, waterway. All sorts of different descriptions for it, amorphic and so forth. So that's water in a state as we see it. But what if I crank that temperature down, and now it freezes? Now I have a finite object. So my descriptions of it are completely different. And I'm describing not the roaring or amorphic shape, but I'm describing something else. If I could take regular water and throw it on my face, it refreshes me. If I do that with ice, I would injure myself. So it's completely different phenomena. It's another state of matter, and yet it's the same source phenomena. So it's the water is this, H2O, that's the same source, and yet it's in a different state, different reports. Now, if I crank up the heat so that we're up to 100, 150 degrees, it becomes fog. It becomes so it's affecting me differently. Now it's affecting my vision. It's affecting my breathing in an entirely different way. And when I describe it, it's completely different. But it's the same source. The same source phenomena is water. It's just different states of matter. And perhaps these sightings that we have of different phenomena, we're all looking for that same source, but we're seeing different manifestations from that same source.
Real quick question too. What is your take? Somebody had wrote about their great uncle who's an American Indian and their experiences with them. Now I know that to them, we kind of look at it as probably looking for a biological creature that is, in a normal realm, where they look at it as religion. Like this is a religious entity, so those boundaries get blurred with the religious aspect. And then obviously for us, the biological, but they're looking to themselves. They're seeing a mystical, when they give stories, there's a blend between their religion and their belief system and the paranormal, right? You understand where I'm going. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Absolutely. There's a large Native American component to this phenomenon. And sometimes they might even be described as a people, as opposed to, a beast or a creature like that. You have the Wendigos, the stone giants, and so forth, that have been reported by the Algonquin and the Iroquois in this region where I live, and the Abenaki and so forth. So they have a large respect of these creatures, and they talk about it, and oftentimes in an almost metaphysical type of parameter. So they may be actually more in touch with what these creatures are than we are, being in a kind of a concrete type of world.
Interesting.
Sorry, I got up. Didn't eat breakfast. Had to run around. This is really interesting. I like going back to school. I'm loving this.
So here's something funny. This guy, Joe Bruce, I was so messed up drinking 10 years ago. I hiked up a mountain, got lost, and saw a horse who turned to dust. So seeing a Bigfoot ain't that far-fetched if you don't get 7 hours of sleep in the jacket. Well, there is some truth to that, because with the Indians, there was a blend between using like peyote and stuff to see these spirit animals. And sometimes these myths that they had may have evolved out of that. So when they're explaining what they saw, they may be purely talking about a spiritual realm that was maybe induced a bit by some of these psychedelics that they used to get to the next plane in their I guess creative imagination.
Right. Well,
the average. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say the average height of a Watusi was like 6'6", right? No, average like they was 7 foot and more, right? Remember the Watusis? And they
Yeah, there
had
were
long,
stories. Yeah,
right?
yeah, there were stories about
I'm
that.
sorry for cutting you off. Sorry.
But
that's fine. Yeah, there's a huge Native American component to all this. And if you look at the Native American totem poles and things, they have representations of these creatures as well on there. So it's a revered topic, and the Native American peoples that I've talked with all acknowledge that these creatures are part of their heritage and culture. And I think it forms that chain of evidence that goes back, hundreds of years in this country. But if you were to go all over the world, if you go to Australia, you're talking about the Yowie or the Yahoo or the Devil's Devil. If you go to Nepal and the Himalayas, there's, I don't know if it's cousin or if it's a derivative of the same creature. You have the Yeti or the Abominable Snowman. If you go to the Russia, you would have the Chachuna or the Almisti. So even in the United States, it's such a well-documented topic. If you go down to Florida, you would be talking about the skunk ape. If you go to Arkansas, it was the Falk monster, the Honey Island swamp creature in Louisiana, and so forth. So we have all these different names for these creatures, and so it's part of our culture. For the skeptic who says there's nothing to it, I would say, well, it's important to study why are we seeing these. So I think this is a win-win topic, whether someone's a skeptic or a believer or a witness, or I think it's a win-win for everybody. Whatever this phenomenon is, it's fascinating. And the one component that I'm absolutely sure about is that this is real. It's not an imagination of someone who's out late at night or something. This is a real phenomena, and oftentimes people that encounter it, they don't want to encounter it. It's the last thing they wanted. Those are very good cases when Dan Gordon wouldn't talk about it publicly for 20 years, 22 years, because he didn't want to be known as the Bigfoot cop. And yet he had a terrific sighting.
so Paul, I don't know how. Oh, I'm sorry, David.
No, go ahead. I got a cool question, but go ahead.
All right, just real quick. How much do you know about the Survivor Man sighting? Because I mean, whether he did that for just to expound, make you show a little more interest, but I mean, he tends to be a person rooted more in reality. What do you know about what he had experienced?
I don't. I've never met him or interviewed him, so I don't have any inside knowledge of that at all.
A question, because of what you're involved with, Paul, and the books you've written, I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of skeptics. Like, what do you think drives someone to be a skeptic? Are they just closed-minded in general? It's like, you don't have to be a believer, but I think most people should at least be open-minded to possibilities of things that we don't understand,
Right. I agree. Several of my friends are skeptics and get along great with them. We have no trouble at all. My brother would call himself a sympathetic skeptic, but he also goes into these cases and investigates firsthand as well as I do. So we have no trouble at all with embracing the skeptic as well as the believer. We can see that we're all looking for the same thing. What is really going on behind this phenomena? And I think when we really take a look at it objectively, we're dealing with something much larger than just a certain unknown primate. And I think there's that connectivity between the phenomena will emerge. The longer someone researches this, the more they'll be introduced into that aspect of it. When you first start out, you're probably going to put things in boxes, in compartments, and work on it that way. Well, this is a UFO case. This is a Bigfoot case. All of a sudden, you'll start to see that connectivity between the phenomena. And I think to a certain degree, skeptics will argue the same argument that I make. We should have a body. I agree, but we don't. We don't have one on display. But, maybe that day is coming, and I'm wide open to that. And I'm sure the skeptic is as well. And like I said, I can work fine with skeptics, have no trouble at all with them.
Okay. Here's a question as far as, because Bigfoot, there's been stories like forever, going back hundreds of years, right?
Yep.
With different sightings. Now, You'd mentioned like chupacabras earlier, where those weren't really talked about since like the 90s. How do you think that phenomenon just came to be somewhat recently in the last few decades?
Right. Yeah. Very interesting. Those sightings came out of like Puerto Rico and Texas and so forth. And they got into the Florida areas. Those sightings absolutely came into prominence in the mid 90s. But you may be able to push back to maybe the 70s. You may have had a case like that or something. But yeah, it's a completely modern phenomena and completely different from the Bigfoot phenomena. I don't know what to make of that. Whether we're dealing with a media country, something contrived that way, or whether it was a real flesh and blood creature, or if it's something more connected to other phenomena. Those things almost look demonic at times with some of the descriptions, and it may be more of a cultural phenomena as well going on with the goat sucker and so forth. In fact, now it's become pop culture because now you have a series of chupacabra horror movies and so forth. So yeah, now it's taken that jump from a cultural phenomena to a pop culture. It's part of our pop culture now.
Yep, and it says, keep in mind, eyewitness testimony in court is seen as a fact. There has been thousands of people have come forward who have seen Bigfoot. Well, so
totally agree. And
okay.
And there's witnesses that like Dan Gordon, who took polygraphs and passed the polygraph. And so the skeptical argument would be, well, he didn't really see that, but he saw something else. But he was with a police officer at the time. So that becomes even harder to explain to the skeptic. So there's a real component here. What I'm convinced of over 50 years, over 5 decades of research into this, and some pretty hard years of hard research into it, I would say that the reality of it is absolute to me. There's absolutely a phenomena being seen, but we just don't know what that is. And there may be, it may be that these are manifestations from that same source phenomena, and we may never get to that source. Now, when I studied UFOs, I was able to meet back in the 1970s, Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Oh, wow.
Came up with the terminology, close encounters of first kind, second kind, third kind.
Mm-hmm.
Saw him speak at a New Hampshire gathering, and I was introduced by Bob Bletchman and Larry Fawcett afterwards to him. At that talk, he wasn't talking about aliens. He was talking about parallel realities. In other words, that these things may come in and out of our reality, what he called a parallel reality.
Shania, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. But yeah, so Hynek may have been talking about this many decades ago, where we're at now.
Explain parallel reality. Like, what is it? Just like a different dimension or something? Or
Yep, yeah, it's what Dr. Muchio Kaku might talk about. There's different realities going on here, different planes of existence. And what Dr. Hynek had talked about was all the great religions would talk about other planes, other realms, other areas that we don't see in this physical world. And he said maybe there's a connection there between the UFO phenomena and the parallel realities.
Have you ever heard of any case where a person has shifted into one of those realities? Because it seems like Bigfoot might shift into ours, or UFOs might shift into ours from theirs. But have you ever heard of a case where a person shifted into like one of those realities or dimensions, and like you see nothing but 50 flying saucers flying around?
Well, what will happen occasionally is people will vanish and never be seen again.
That's scary.
These are absurd cases. For instance, you're on a trail. I know the Bennington Triangle, which is Bennington, Vermont, near in the Northeast here. There were sightings of people on a trail, or reports of people on a trail, and somebody steps off to go to the bathroom or something, and they never see them again. Now, if they're eaten by a bear, you're going to hear something. If they fall down and injure themselves, you're going to find them. They aren't, and they're never seen again. They don't make any sense, these types of reports. And people will disappear and reappear in other areas occasionally. That's a rare report, but they don't seem to have knowledge of where they've been. And if you go back to the old legends of like elves and fairies, very similar to the UFO abduction legends, where someone is abducted, they have missing time, and then they're returned, and they have this time period they can't account for. The Travis Walton case, I was able to meet and Betty Hill, who was in 1961 was in the New Hampshire mountains and the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and she and her husband lost 2 hours and 10 minutes, something like that, 2.5 hours. And they later had to be regressed under regressive hypnosis by Dr. Benjamin Simon to come out with details about what had happened during that missing time. Mm-hmm. And they told a tale of being abducted and given some sort of examination and released. And the story is much more convoluted. However, I believe Betty. Whatever that experience is, I'm convinced she had it. She and her husband had it. And so cases like that are very interesting. The recent one in 73, when we had this La Cabana incident, the restaurant up in my area, a few months earlier in Pascagoula, Mississippi, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. And Calvin just passed away, unfortunately, a couple of months ago. But they were taken aboard a craft and they were given a physical examination, and they had passed polygraph tests. And I really believe their story of they had encountered this thing. And in fact, they were brought back to the sheriff's office, where the sheriff started a recorder without them knowing it to see what they would talk about when they left the room. And they were just climbing the walls because it was such a real experience to them. So whatever this experience is, the missing time and so forth, it all seems to be tied up into that. It's real.
Real quick, somebody had mentioned Gamer Vet about portholes. There is a story, and I'm sure you're aware of, two young children, and I believe they were green or blue, and we're going back to probably the 1700s. And this is a story that has, lasted throughout time. And these kids said they came from another world where they walked through a porthole, and they were found by villagers, and they were either green, I think it was green. And the sister, it was a boy and girl, the sister had died, ended up passing away. She became very unhealthy, but the boy had lived. And they couldn't, I'm not even sure if they could, eventually it was in time he could speak English. But do you know anything about that story? And
I don't, but I heard similar tales, similar descriptions of that, talking about other realms and, glimpses of these other areas. It's very interesting. If we step back very quickly to the Bigfoot phenomena, there was that boy, I can't remember where it was, who was found unharmed, who said that he was taken care of by this bear, which makes no sense at all. And yet he survived, conditions that should have killed him. And yet this bear had taken care of him. And obviously the description wasn't of a bear, but he was so young that we're not getting any further details of it. That memory will fade because of his youth. But he survived because of one of these unusual creatures.
Wow. Makes sense too. Makes a lot of sense.
Question, Paul. You said a lot of your friends are skeptics. Have you ever converted a skeptic into a believer?
I like that one. I like that one, David.
I don't know. I think what I may have done is broaden the perspective a little wider into not compartmentalizing these phenomena, and to understand that there's often a connection between UFO, cryptid, and parapsychological phenomena. And if somebody has an abduction experience or a UFO sighting, just be aware that they may also encounter a poltergeist or have a religious experience as well. And there seems to be a connection. I think maybe I broadened that perspective a little, but I don't think I've made any converts.
What's a poltergeist again? I forgot.
Poltergeist is a German word for mischievous or noisy spirit. And that's going to a haunted house and the objects are flying around the house. Their objects are moving, smashing and so forth.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Hey, Paul, have you ever experienced anything yourself, such as like a UFO sighting, Bigfoot sighting, other cryptid sighting, or anything else like that?
I haven't.
Oh, you have not?
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it would be frustrating.
Yeah. I've been on, there've been lights in the sky, but it's nothing I would categorize as unidentified and nothing spectacular.
Sure.
I may have been very close on a one particular Bigfoot incident, but I can't confirm that. My evidence, my expectation for a sighting is much higher than some people that might say, well, I heard something crunching behind me or something like that. I have to actually have a sighting like Dan Gordon's or Cliff Sparks and so forth to consider it a sighting. So no, I haven't had that seminal moment yet.
Okay.
It's funny you talk about like sightings. Here's my Bigfoot sighting. So 1991 in Korea, I was driving between bases, and this thing popped up in a field and starts running across all this stuff going. Now you got to remember, I was at that time probably a PFC, a private, wasn't very experienced. Ran across, then dove across the road and laid down in the field. So I drive up, I stop, I'm staring at it. Then all of a sudden, the guy turns around. There was a guy in a ghillie suit and yells, "Hey, get the hell out of here!" They were doing sniper training or something. I don't know, practicing. But in my mind, I saw a monster. I said, man, I just saw whatever an Asian Yeti. It was a dude, and I'd never seen a ghillie suit before.
There was a gentleman, I think it was out in, I want to say California, but I'm not positive where it was. But he was killed by getting hit by a car because he was running across a major highway with a ghillie suit on, trying to perpetrate a sighting. I mean, it's one of the
wow,
very unfortunate, but silly stuff. Now, it's interesting you mentioned laying down there because when Kinderhook, New York, which is 10 miles south of Albany, there was a creature called the Kinderhook creature back in the 80s, and it was cited by Martha Hallenbeck, who said it was curled up in the fetal position on her lawn. And she said she thought it was a bear. It got up on two legs and walked away. And she reported it to the papers, and that became Times Union down there. Barney Fowler for Albany had reported it as a Kinderhook creature. Well, about that same time, a few years earlier, actually in 76, a jeep load of Chinese university professors saw a creature curled up in the fetal position on the side of the road. They were heading to Beijing. And they said they got out of the Jeep and threw some stones at the creature, thinking that it would get up and lumber off. It got up, stood up on two legs, and walked off. So, very similar that sighting of the creature in the fetal position, just laying down in the grass somewhere, was both consistent with the Chinese Cheiren and the American Sasquatch.
Bison says, why can't anybody catch one of this situation on camera?
Oh, we kind of covered that. The problem is, even if someone has footage,
okay,
they don't really believe it. Like the Patterson film, for example, looks great, and you said the guy's still going with the story, but people either believe it or they don't. And that's pretty clear film footage. And I've seen videos, they pop up on YouTube. Some of them look really fake. Some of them are questionable. But, even though I guess I'm more like David Duchovny in X-Files. You know how he's got that poster, I want to believe? Like, I want to believe. I'm not saying, like, I don't just have blind faith. It's like I want to believe, but because I haven't seen Bigfoot and I don't have definitive proof, I can't just say, I mean, I could say I want to believe it and I'm open to it, but I don't believe it because I haven't experienced it myself. But I don't disbelieve it either.
Right. There was a great episode of the X-Files, by the way, Jose Chunks from Outer Space, in which the very end scene was David Duchovny alone in his apartment watching the Patterson film over and over again.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Hey, Paul, can you show off some of your books? You've written several books. If you want to show those off, and anybody can order these on Amazon.com. I actually linked one of them in the video description, but yeah, let's go over these books you wrote.
Well, this is the most recent one we have here. This is The Mysterious North Woods. And that's the only one I have right here with me. And that's what's available right now. And that's a compilation of various phenomena, whether you're talking about poltergeist or cryptozoology or ufology. It's a very much like an atlas of events for the New York and Vermont area, the Green Mountains of Vermont and the Adirondacks of New York. And so that's the recent thing that's out. In the past, we co-authored Monsters of the North Woods, which isn't available anymore. And in 2008, we put out a book called Bigfoot Encounters in New York and New England with Hancock House. And, we just keep collecting, and we will eventually expand the Mysterious North Woods into another edition, probably in a couple of years at this point. We just keep collecting reports and trying to bring a broader knowledge of this topic. And I think what's happened when I've been researching this from my early days on to now is this has largely become almost mainstream topics. Back when I was researching this was very esoteric. Now with the Skinwalker Ranch research and so forth, George Knapp's research into these topics and so forth, this has really evolved into almost mainstream science. We know with the UAP phenomena that the Pentagon's been studying this for years, and the ATIP program and stuff. So yeah, it's funny that this has gone more mainstream than when I began.
This is interesting.
Jim, have you ever had any kind of paranormal experiences, whether it be ghosts or seeing some strange creature?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
I have as a young person. I can't remember some of the stuff. I know one time I thought I saw a lady with white stuff on. A lot of things happened, when I was young, and I did see some things, and I'm still really puzzled about it. But after years go on, you just forget about it. So sometimes I'm like when I go to sleep and I be by myself, I'll be like thinking about crazy stuff, and when you sleep with, like, if you eat a lot of food, you'll sleep and get bad memories and stuff.
Nightmares.
When you sleep and stuff, well, on a heavy stomach, you get nightmares and everything. I did witness some things, but I don't know if there was enough to really talk. Oh, damn, talk.
Okay. Well, let's address these two comments. We'll go to the one on the screen in 1 second. I do want to address this one by JD real quick.
Yeah.
Where he said, what happened to making the 80s and 90s great again? Bigfoot, what the F? So, JD, just so you know, and everybody watching, on Saturdays, we're going to be doing live episodes. Me and Brian, and anytime Tim wants to join, and of course, we're always
I'm part of the team, man. I got to talk.
Yeah, of course, you're part of the team. So anytime you want to join me and Brian Saturday, but me and Brian are going to be here every Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Anytime you want to come, Tim, like today is great. But we're always going to have a different guest. So today we have Paul Bartholomew. And, sometimes the topics aren't going to be what my channel generally does, because I want to expand a little bit. But next week, we're going to have Ross Clarkson, cinematographer, director of The Last Kumite, but also cinematographer on a lot of Van Damme, Seagal, Michael Jai White, Scott Adkins movies. So sometimes I will have these directors or actors related to that 80s, 90s stuff that I typically do on the channel. The funny thing is, the way I met Paul was that he does watch my channels and very interested in like Steven Skull, all this other stuff. But I'm also interested in paranormal stuff. So I figured, he'd be a great guest to talk about Bigfoot and other stuff. So Saturday's lives, sometimes there'll be more of the typical 80s, 90s movie related content, martial arts stuff. And sometimes they'll just be different things that I find interesting, and hopefully some of the audience will as well. So that addresses that. So anyway, this comment here, can you read this one on the screen, Brian?
Yeah, the now that I can't pronounce it, I'm going to try Momomu object in 2017 is the best evidence of extraterrestrial life, in my opinion.
Have you heard of that, Paul? Like this object in 2017?
I'm not sure what case they're talking about there. There have been a number of cases. Are we talking about the creature in Brazil?
I think they're talking about, I think it was a telescope. This object's moving through space, if I'm not incorrect.
Oh, it looks like a cigar thing, I guess.
Yeah.
It was up to a 1/4 mile long and highly elongated. So It kind of looked like some weird cigar-shaped thing. I guess they thought it was a spaceship, but maybe it's a meteor.
Well,
yeah, and I think it moved. It had direction. That's what confused the scientists and the astrophysics, whoever the people looking at this stuff. It had a trajectory that wasn't conducive with the phenomenons that you would normally expect in space. So it seemed like it was under intelligent control.
Right. They felt it wasn't artificial. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any, further depth on that. Obviously, what you would look up is whatever the astronomers were theorizing about it. That's where
That's the word I was looking for. The astronomers. Yeah, the astronomers.
Yeah. There's a couple of cases in Brazil where there was a strange creature that was with red eyes that was encountered by officials, and that story has come out in a documentary a couple of years ago. And there's a number of cases like that, high profile, that are very, very interesting. And of course, anything connected with George Knapp, very credible. And so, we've really come a long ways with this topic. And as far as, extraterrestrial, multidimensional, we might be just splitting hairs here on what this phenomena really is.
Okay. Interesting.
What about you, Viking? Did you ever have any kind of paranormal experiences?
I seen something that I thought was a UFO. I'm not saying it was like Tim. I'm not saying it was like an alien spacecraft, but it was something that like just threw me off, like a glitch in the Matrix type thing. And it wasn't like the typical UFO sighting. So this was probably 2010 era, and it was in Simi Valley, California. And I was literally like talking to my friend. So it wasn't like super dark outside, but it was starting to get dusk, And, he was talking to me, and there was this object that was like, it was just a cube, and it was like this color, this blue. It really looked like it was illuminated from within. And it just, from out of my peripheral up here, it just went straight down like an elevator, but it went so fast, but it didn't streak at all. And it was like a perfect cube square, and it just went behind the tree line. And you would think it would have like blew up or something, but I don't know what the hell that was, but I was just looking at my friend, and I just blurted out like, what the, and he's like, what? I was like, that is the craziest thing I've seen behind you. So not your typical UFO sighting, but I've seen like green comets. I've seen meteors. I've seen all kinds of things. This thing did not look natural at all. And it was crazy. So I chalked that up to an actual UFO. I'm not saying it was like an alien or anything, but it was definitely something I've never seen since. And I couldn't make sense. It's like a glitch in the Matrix or something, right?
And
a lot of times, Brian, I get that type of feelings is when I overeat and I lay down and get nightmares. And no, seriously, if I eat too much and then I can't really go to sleep, I go to sleep, then I have nightmares because my food didn't digest. I'll be thinking about stuff. A lot of times that happens. I get bad dreams from that.
And I think that's a good point, Champ, is, there are also, psychological conditions, where that A Beautiful Mind, that guy, he literally, that movie was based on that. I forget what his degree was in, but he was a brilliant person, but he saw people that weren't there, so he had to go through life navigating that. So some people see, and now whether what he was seeing was, something that's not psychological, maybe he saw what other people couldn't see. But go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
No, I was just, you remind me of something there. In this area, the Kingston Accord, New York area, which is, a couple hours from where I'm at, there's a cabin that Whitley Strieber has. And of course, Whitley Strieber had authored horror books like The Wolfen and so forth, and was very, very, well off in that regards. He had an encounter in the 80s in that cabin with non-human beings. And his cabin, he would invite people over, and they would also have paranormal experiences in this cabin. So that's not unheard of to have this this glimpse into another realm. And Whitley Strieber wrote Communion and Transformation and Confirmation and a series of books on the UFO phenomenon. And that's the New York State case right here in my area. And so highly credible, very interesting. And, you know, it's hard to categorize sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's well put too. And I always ask people, you know, when you're talking about paranormal skeptics or not, you know, personal experience, and even sometimes the biggest skeptics will say, "Well, I saw this. I don't know what I saw, and none of my education can help me understand that." And of course, we try to find, logical reasons for whatever. I mean, like myself, when I was a kid, I've had different experiences. I had something very strange when I was in Germany. My mother's German. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I was with a cousin, and we went into so I don't know, it was kind of like a marsh, like these reeds were growing, and he was off one side. We're digging. The water was only this deep, and then you're mixing around. And then, you know, I grew up in the country, so we had geese and ducks, and I knew exactly what those things were. And I opened up these reeds, and I was going to walk through, and there was a snake as tall as I was, had a head like this. And when I researched it years later, I think, and this is a mystical creature, it was very strange. It opened its mouth and hissed at me, like, and I fell back, and this thing looked like a snake's head. I mean, purely but it hissed more like a goose would hiss. Not so much like a snake or whatever. To me, it sounded like a goose, but this thing had a long neck, was like a snake, looked right at me. And they have a thing called the Stetzelwurm. I think that's how they Stetzelwurm in Germany, and goes way back, and it's kind of this creature with a long neck, and it kind of like a dinosaur, but it goes 1,000 years of folklore. But I'd seen it, I've never forgot that.
Let me say this real quick. When I was little, I'm big now. I used to eat a lot. I ate real good and everything. And sometimes when I probably ate and didn't give enough time for my food to digest, this lady would always ride my back when I lay on my stomach. I swear. When I lay on my stomach, and it's like I'm a horse riding, and she'd be on my back, and I did see blonde hair. Blonde hair.
That's interesting, Tim, because that
when I
is
was
a
little.
phenomenon. That's called the old hag.
It happened. Women, Brian. It happened. It happened a lot. I start laying on my back. It didn't happen. But when I lay on my stomach, she ride my back all the time.
Now, could you move, or did you feel paralyzed?
I felt. I couldn't do nothing, but I did hear horse hitting the ground, and she was just standing there, and I turned back and looked, but I really couldn't see all of her face. This was nightmares. I swear, this happened it happened a whole lot when I was little.
Were you having a hard time breathing? That's what
made me sleep on my back. That's what made me sleep on my back all the time. Because
did you have a hard time breathing, Champ, when that happened?
No, I didn't have a hard time breathing. I was scared. I was scared when I was young, and and it would be like a horse riding, and it happened a lot of times. I never took this. Is the first time I'm really talking about this in my whole life. Yeah. Serious. Yeah, this is the first time. No, I talked to my mom, and I talked to other people, other friends and stuff. But let me hold up. This is more important. What we're talking about, and it would be like a horse riding thing, and I would turn around and look. And I seen white hair, but I really ain't see the face. And I hear the bro. And I was so scared. I was glad that went away. And I used to lay on my back and go to sleep instead of on my stomach. On my stomach. It used to happen all the time. And that scared me when I was little. But it went away now. I sleep on my back now. And I don't get nightmares no more at all. But when I was little, I used to lay on my stomach. And I held her here, and she on my back, and she like whipping me. I swear, true story. Really? I never talked about this in my life, but I had nightmares when I used to lay on my stomach when I was little, and this lady riding my back all the time. Swear, true story, all the time. Then that's why I lay on my back all the time. I lay on my back now because I was scared of that lady. I'm scared of that lady. What?
So Paul's an expert on this kind of. I bet you.
I was scared.
Tell him what you think it was.
The witch was riding my back. The witch was riding my back all the time when I ate too much.
This is you hit it. This is the old hag phenomena.
Okay.
Reported quite frequently, and it may be in conjunction with the sleep paralysis.
Okay.
type of phenomena that we exist. Yeah, you're in good company, Tim. Nothing. I mean, it sounds bizarre, but
I was scared all the time.
yeah, many people have experienced this
This
same.
the first I ever talked about it in public.
Right. It's a difficult topic to bring up, and yeah, no, I can just sense the sincerity in your voice about it and how real it was to you and how much it impressed you. Yeah, it's called the old hag phenomena, the old hag syndrome, and sleep paralysis may be in conjunction with this, and it gives you an even more terrified aspect to it, experience to it. So yeah, you're in good company, Tim.
Just the
So,
first time I
Paul,
talked about it. Just the first time I talked to my mom about it. I talked to my family about it, but I never talked about it to other people. And now since it's come up, that was the most scariest part of my young life. Going to
I've never heard
sleep.
of this type
Going
of
to
thing.
sleep
Yeah,
worrying
there's
about
actually art.
the witch,
There's
worrying about
artwork
the
on
witch
it.
riding my
Goes
back.
way back.
I'm
Yeah.
Wow.
serious.
There's artwork that goes way back where there's one famous art with this like creature sitting on this guy's chest. You've probably seen it. And it's a common. So what happens in sleep paralysis from a physiological standpoint, when you go, what happens if you awake when you're in your REM state, your dream state? So we don't act out our dreams, right? Because if you're running in your dream, you don't want to be running around your house, right? So if you do sleepwalk a lot, that is an issue. So when you have sleep paralysis, that means you've woken, so you're conscious, but your body is still locked, shut down, so you can't move. And oftentimes you'll be coming out of a dream, and that dream will still be kind of a reality to you, so you can't move. And sometimes we influence that, what we're kind of lucidly dreaming, by now being afraid because I can't move. So then we begin to imagine we're being held down. People often will struggle to breathe, and that can be in conjunction with sleep apnea. So you have a couple different physiological conditions happening at once, which causes a quite terrifying situation where you can't breathe, you can't move, and this is due to us being stuck in our REM state, which is rapid eye movement dream state, and our body is frozen, paralyzed, so we don't act out our dreams, but we're awake.
But I hear the horses brum, 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 when I was little. That was the most scariest part of my life. This is the first time I'm ever talking about it outside my house, because this subject is coming about. But I used to be scared of the witch, and I used to look back. It used to happen all the time. I used to look back and see like white hair swinging and
But
the
Tim,
horse.
maybe Paul can talk about this. Could this be a past life, memory of a
Wait a
past
minute.
life, something that happened? You
Wait.
know,
Well, I mean, sure. For people that delve into reincarnation, then they have multiple past lives usually, and they bring out details through regressive hypnosis. Those cases are most striking when they have details that confirm who they were in the previous lives, and you might get some glimpses of what was going on before. For instance, if someone's having some bizarre recollections, and the more details are brought out, and then they're able to name streets and addresses and specific names, it becomes pretty fascinating. And you wonder, are they picking this up some sort of psychically way, or is this really another reality that they were in, another past life that they were alive as someone else years ago? Boy, what a fascinating topic. And there was a famous case of a young boy who was giving details of being a fighter pilot and during the war, and actually was killed. And he gave tremendous amount of details. And what will happen is that boy eventually will lose those details. That memory will fade. And you wonder if there isn't something there from the very time that they're born, that they have those details for a very specific amount of time before it starts to fade away and they delve into this life. That's one of the fascinating cases of reincarnation. And, Dr. Helen Wambach and so forth had done tremendous amount of research into that area. I just find it fascinating.
That is fascinating. I do believe we get recycled back into the system, so to speak, and maybe there's something that triggers those memories from that previous life,
I hope so. I hope
That
there's
was
something.
scary.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, I was terrified for years, and then when I got older, it went away. I never told nobody. I didn't like that witch. I didn't like that witch, and I slept on my stomach all the time, and then when I started sleeping on my back, like this way, it never came. But every time I slept on my stomach, they lay babies on their stomach. They lay babies on their stomachs. They go to sleep. So when I started, I never knew not to lay. I didn't know which side to lay on, but I kept laying on my this, and the witch come all the time.
That's
Come all the
crazy.
time, and yeah, I swear, all these years, this is the first time I'm talking about it, and I was scared for a long time,
Tim,
scared to
this is
sleep
like
on.
you talking about throwing the bone crusher fight. If it's a breaking news,
No,
this
this
is
is worse than that. No, this is worse than that. This is worse than that. I was terrified to go to sleep on my stomach, and sometimes you forget about it and you go to sleep on your stomach, and that witch come right back. She'll come back and scare me to death. And
That
I was
sounds,
little,
you
man.
know, Tim. The more you talk about it, I think I dated her.
Well,
Hey,
whenever they make the
I
Tim
was,
Witherspoon, biopic, they'll have to have that in your childhood of haunting you. Have
but
to
what
have
we're
those,
gonna do,
the
listen,
spiritual
what we're
element, like
gonna
the
do
Bruce Lee
too.
story had
What
that
we're gonna
thing.
do also is the Viking Samurai was getting ready for a big time fight and everything. We're getting ready for some fight, and we was talking business, and I think I'm gonna give him a call maybe tomorrow, the next day, and I can help. We'll talk. We can help. But he was getting ready to cross over. I know it's a different subject into the boxing world and do fighting and me and we're going to talk. We had a little a business thing that we had to work out, and I thought about it for a while. He's a really good guy, and we could figure something out where I could
Well,
fit
Tim,
in.
I gotta disappoint you because when he saw my praying
Oh, the
mantis,
praying mantis kung fu. That's what I've been training in
forget
Philly.
about forget about
But you
boxing,
don't have
Tim.
any head movement in that praying mantis kung fu, Brian.
Well,
That's why
we
I
take
kept
care of
getting
it with our. See, we move like this, like
anyway.
a train. We got this weird move. Tim, I've sparred with you. Can't handle when I stop that. You
I
can't.
hang a
You don't know
sign
what
over your
that thing
eyes saying
felt.
closed for the weekend. I hang a sign over your eyes saying closed for the weekend.
You, I just gotta say this is so surreal for me because in between following these different cryptic topics and so forth, the unexplained, I was an avid boxing fan through the 80s. So to be
Okay.
here with Tim is a real it's a real thrill for me. By the way, you had Holmes, no question about it.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. Yeah.
amazing fight.
I was young. I was young. I only had 12 fights, and that was just man. And he talked down to me, and that's what motivated me. He talked down to me. I don't have no money. I'm gonna knock you out and take your wife from you, your girl from you. You
Oh,
just a bum. And I had to represent. I came from the same neighborhood. Sylvester Stallone made that movie Rocky. 10 minutes away. And then I went on to become the real two-time heavyweight champ, not him. We could get it on, me and him. And I'm just really satisfied about what's going on now. But we just got to get together and get Viking Samurai on the right track. And we're gonna sit down and just talk about some
oh, we're
things.
gonna be ready next year, man.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
working my slip bag every day. I'm getting the head movement down. Like we going hardcore on a lot of cool training, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll,
Um,
we'll have a conversation. It's just that business is business, and we have to come together and work things out. So let's
Brian, Tim is a
So
businessman.
we
yeah,
almost
yeah,
finished.
yeah. Tim, you are a businessman, brother. So here, something interesting before we close. I'd like to put out is maybe we can talk about this, and you might be something interesting, Paul. Is I can't really get into all the details about where this occurred from, but we are working with some DoD defense researchers, engineers, scientists, and we've gotten into the topic about this kind of stuff. And they were very fascinated. And I mean, I would love to. And now this is maybe for those out there who are into the paranormal, but also skeptics and scientists and like myself. I want to believe, but I need, to have the real evidence. And can you imagine if we can get some of these people, some at MIT and working on to actually go to maybe over here, the Eastern State Penitentiary, and create machines or devices that they believe could measure some type of changes, either, on an atomic level. Can you imagine that if we could get some people from MIT to come down here? I'd love to do a show, get a couple of them on there and begin to talk about if that's a possibility.
I was scared for a long time, Brian. Serious. I was worried. I was
I know
scared
you're scared of me.
every time
And
I
I
go to.
told you, you
No,
can't.
Brian. No, serious. No, serious. Like the things he's talking about.
Yeah, no.
He's a heavyweight champion of the world. I was scared for a year, for like a couple of years until that stuff went away. Every night it kept on my back. I didn't know what it was, scaring me. I talked to my mom. I didn't know, man. I was scared back then. I still fear from it now in a way. I don't sleep on my back, on my stomach. I sleep on my back all the time. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
Well, that may be the next evolution in the research of these topics. I mean, EVPs has been, that was another development in this sort of research. And now you have these overnight sort of surveillance set up now with all these cameras that record things. Because, a lot of times ghost hunting, ghost research can be very boring, can be very, very dull. It's like hours and hours of nothing and then 2 minutes of pure terror. And that's how it happens a lot of times. But that 2 minutes is worth going through all that to get to. So I think that might be, that could conceivably be the next evolution of this type of research.
Yeah, I think we got to measure. Now we need to measure. Like, you go from having a hypothesis to a theory. In order to extrapolate, right, which they call in science is extrapolating, you take known evidence, and now you can have, you can develop that into a theory, right? But or at least guess what an outcome could be, right? We're going to have a good possibility that, so they call that extrapolation. You take data and then you put that data into a way that you can predict the future. You do it with gambling all the time, right? You're trying to take some known things, and some people are better than others at it. And if we can now start collecting data, serious data, we can really have real discussions on what we're looking at, on these interdimensional creatures, these shadow beings, they call them. But if we can measure that we're looking at, or is caught on camera, if we have a way to measure it, we can come up with some predictions based upon that data.
There's no way I'm sleeping on my stomach. And I'm 65. I'm 65. I'm 65. You got to pay me. I'm not sleeping on my stomach. That's how bad it was.
We will pay you and film it. What do you think? We make an episode. We'll pay you to sleep on your stomach and we'll film it.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. That was a serious part of my life. Sleeping on my stomach and that witch ride my back. I swear. And you hear the horse.
That's crazy, man.
I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a bad kid either. I had eight siblings. We slept in a 3-bedroom house. I switched beds as the years went on. We switched beds. And when you get older, you got to get out the house. Then the next one get this bed. But I swear I was getting nightmares all the time. If I laid on my stomach, I know the witch was coming. I know she was coming. I tried my best to lay sideways, but I wind up all the time on my stomach. Now that I'm older, I sleep on my back all the time. I hate to sleep on my stomach. I'm scared. I'm scared to death of that witch.
I think that's a very interesting point that Tim makes, is that just how traumatic and how much one of these experiences can affect someone. And yet it wouldn't be able to, unless you had, devices to measure it. You have no evidence to support it. And yet it's as real to you as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
That was scary, man.
We could tell, man. You're very sincere in this. Hey, let's go to this question though. Paul, what do you think about Lloyd Pye theory on intelligent hominoids mistaken as Bigfoot?
All these theories are fine with me. I throw out any theory you want. I'm looking for the evidence, the proof, the patterns that emerge. And, we're just going to keep going down this road until something comes forward. Hopefully it'll be within my lifetime, but perhaps it won't be. Dr. Hynek never got to see the end results. Stanton Friedman, has passed away beforehand and so forth. And so maybe we'll never know for sure. But I think if we just keep progressing, this becomes more and more mainstream, and that we're heading in the right direction.
There's some crazy times. I just got to remember them. And when we do the next, if you have me on or we do the next one, I'm going to remember and write it down. Some of the serious stuff. Sometimes I was in tears too. This happened all the time. And when I was little, and then when I started laying on my back, it went away. But if I laid on my stomach, and then people started talking about eating too much. I tried to stop not eating too much, and still it laid on my stomach. It still happened. But when I laid on my back, I think nothing happened. Nothing happened. When I laid on my stomach, I'm riding a horse, brr, brr, and she was whipping me. I'm looking around. I swear, she hit me this way, then hit me that way.
Well,
I
here,
never
champ,
see
let
her.
me share something with everybody so I'm going to share the screen here. So this is a painting, I believe, from I think it's from the 1800s. People, 1800s. You can correct me here. It's very old, and you'll probably be
Old
quite.
as Brian.
Yeah, right. I ain't old as you, champ.
Let's see this painting, man.
So I'm sharing this screen with you guys.
Yeah, sure.
See this painting? I could blow it up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
See it sitting on this woman's chest. This is an old painting. This is the old hag syndrome, and it was quite a talked about thing back in that time. And many people talked about it. Now there's different. Obviously, I explained a psychological and physiological component to it, but many think this still has a paranormal basis.
There's a horse in that painting too.
Yes. So
Where's the horse? Oh, right to the left.
That's the horse, man.
When people have the old hag syndrome, remember I said from a psychological and physiological standpoint, they're coming out of a dream, but they're awake. So they got stuck in the REM state, which paralyzes the body. So we don't act out the dream, but we can often still be seeing our dream because we're in a very lucid state between dream state and wakened state. And people will see things moving around the room. Many people, this could be explained certain alien abductions.
I've never seen it.
But seeing that horse, I think, represents that dreaming, that there are other things that you're seeing around you when you're in this.
I was on the horse. I was on the horse riding it.
But again, it could go back to a past life experience, Tim. So it could have been a final moment of your past life. And this could have been, a catastrophic event where you were on a horse and there was a woman with you.
This went on for a long time when I was little. And then when I got older and kept sleeping on my back, it went away and I was happy as hell.
Yeah.
But I didn't know no better. I kept sleeping on my stomach and it kept happening. It kept happening. And I was scared. And now that we're talking about it, I'm saying, whoa. I'm
like
still
therapy,
scared. I ain't gonna sleep on my stomach.
Therapy.
I'm not sleeping on my stomach.
And
it's better to sleep on your back anyway. So
yeah, for breathing. But Paul can probably talk about this too. Is this is very traumatic. People have had, especially experiences as.
I'm still scared today. I'm still scared today, Brian. I'm not sleeping on my stomach.
So yeah, I mean, this can leave profound scars, and the people out there watching, maybe there are people who have had these experiences that have left. The idea of seeing doors. As a child, you see a door open to your closet, or hear noises, having sleep paralysis. Waking dreams. But as kids, sometimes we have a hard time discerning between a waking state, a dreaming state, where you're kind of awake but dreaming, as we talked about.
Okay.
Horrifying things, we think are reality, but in truth, they're just a physiological situation.
Yeah, but for sure, man.
Speak on that, maybe.
Well, sorry, what was the last part of that, Brian?
Oh, I said maybe Paul. I don't know what kind of studies you've done on that, or have opinions on that. The trauma, the PTSD, I guess, from paranormal.
That's real, man. It's real. I'm a witness.
My brother's done studies on that, on the hypnopompic and experiences such as that. And I can relate from a personal standpoint of not being able to open my eyes, but actually dreaming that my eyes are, they're shut and I'm trying to wake up. So I've only experienced it from that limited perspective, but certainly Tim has experienced this this phenomena very sincerely, and it's made an effect on him. And yet, you know, when you look at it from the paranormal point of view, for evidence, what does he have to offer? Well, there's no question he's had this. And so it shows the frustration sometimes of witnesses who've encountered something that they can't explain, and yet they really can't put proof forward. Dan Gordon, the same thing. When he saw his Bigfoot encounter, he had no evidence to put forward, but he did everything he could up to that point to show that this was a real experiences. So I understand what Tim's saying and how profound this was on him. And I, you know, take comfort in that you're not alone. This has happened to many, many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is, you know, this is a 2-time heavyweight champion world who faced some of the toughest fighters in history. So to all those people have had some experiences where they've been afraid and maybe even ashamed, like, wow, you know, I had this happen to me, and you know, it's paranormal, but it's affected, made me feel like a coward or afraid or whatever. You know, you're not alone. You know, some of the toughest men in the world have had these experiences. So
I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was I didn't feel like I'm the toughest man in the world, or I didn't feel like I just felt like lost, like I couldn't do nothing about it. I mean, and now that this came about, I'm like talking about something that happened to me in my life, and I let it go. And now on this show, we talking about it,
Oh, you got you, champ.
and it's serious, man. That's the serious stuff. I was talking about it. We talking about it, and this here it is. I'm not scared now, but that was a big part of my life, man. I'm telling you, when I was little.
And how old were you, Tim, when it started?
It's I think about 6 or 7 years old, and then it went on to I was like in junior high school, and I didn't know not to sleep on my back. I just kept sleeping on my stomach. You know, I kept sleeping on my stomach and then sideways sometimes. It never happened when I slept on my back, but every time I slept on my stomach, that bitch keep following me, keep messing with me.
Yeah.
It like keep messing with me and stuff, and I'm like, damn. And now we talking about it. It's always in my mind. It's in my mind, and always in the room when I go to bed. I'm like, I wonder if this bitch gonna come back, you know? And it hasn't, because I slept on my back all the time. I'm scared to sleep on my stomach. I'm serious.
And it's funny, you said my brother experienced the same thing as you. And it would
I'm
be
scared to talk about it.
Yeah, it was a thing would come in the room, and it would sound like a train first. He would hear the sound of a train. He couldn't move, but he would see it flying around. Now, he has said, one of his girlfriends said, it attacked him one time in the bed when she was in the bed and saw the depression, and she was pushed by it. Now, you know, I don't know how much truth was, you know,
I'm trying to think.
They got into some stuff, if you know what I mean, partying a bit. And it influenced what she was saying just because he believed it was happening. But well, it's very common.
It's trying to control you. I'm thinking it's trying to control you and intimidate you. Whatever that was, it was trying to intimidate me. It wasn't a good thing. It wasn't like a positive thing. It was like, hey, I got control of you. Now keep on riding, keep riding. And I hear the horse going, boom, 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 right? And it kept on controlling me. And I tried to fight it back, but I had to ride it. I had to ride it out. And then I got to think about what happened after the ride out. I either wake up and scared and get up and don't go back to sleep, or maybe sleep on the side or something like that. And sometimes I go back and it would come back. I would go back to sleep and it would come back later. Like,
you know, back in the 80s, there was a major motion picture out called The Entity.
The Entity,
and
yeah.
That was based on Dr. Barry Taft's research into the case of, you know, it might have been called a succubus or, you know, different over the years. But of an entity, of a ghost that was actually sexually assaulting a young woman. And they were able to bring that woman into the laboratory and filmed arcs of light shooting around her. The movie was dramatized at the end, but the basics of the movie were pretty well on. And Dr. Barry Taft is still with us, done tremendous research into hauntings and so forth. So those are some of the extreme cases that people experience. However, I think Tim's experience, it's so traumatic to him, but it's very, very common. So, take comfort in that you're not alone.
Okay. I never told nobody. I told my mom and everything. Um, I told my mom, and let me see. I used to joke around with my kids and tell them, but then I left it alone. It went away. It went away when I started sleeping on my back. I know one time when I laid on my back, I seen, and I got a bad sleep. I seen blue and white dots shooting when I opened my eyes and I couldn't move. I seen blue and white dots just shooting all around. And then that was I think that was a form of me laying on my stomach like that lady riding on my back. It wasn't a man, it was always a woman riding on my back. But when I laid on my back, a couple of times I just seen blue dots and stuff flying. It only happened like twice. Like the blue dots. I'm laying on my back and then I get a nightmare and I was like, and the blue dots just flying like that, and then I would wake up. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more terrifying ones was when I lay on my stomach.
When you go to try to move and you can't move, that even increases the terrifying nature of it, and that's well established as sleep paralysis, which you had described. So yeah, I think that's what's going on there, and if you found a way to sleep, whether it be on your back or whatever, and that doesn't happen, I
On
would
my
just
back. On my back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good, Tim. So it doesn't affect you now, and keep sleeping on your back. So guys, I think we should wrap this up.
Okay.
Every Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific, and who knows what time, depending on what area of Europe you're at. But join us every Saturday. The next episode. Oh, I'll leave with this comment from this guy. He said, martial arts, UFOs, paranormal, vampires, magic. I love those topics. So we're going to cover a variety of topics. Next week, we're going to have Ross Clarkson, who'd worked, a filmmaker, worked with Van Damme, Seagal, Michael Jai White, Scott Adkins. He has so many great stories. Some of them he won't share publicly, of course. But I know some of the stories, but he'll share what he can, right, without getting in trouble. So we'll talk about his filmmaking journey in the last 30 years next Saturday. So any parting words, guys?
Yeah, I'm just really shocked that this was the conversation is about. And this been in me for a long time, man. This was like a long time about these nightmares. And I know there's other people that had them, man. And I didn't even know this is what the show was going to be about. And I had it hidden in me for a long time about these nightmares and stuff, and didn't know how to really approach them or anything. And what helped me was just laying on my back.
Sure.
So I didn't even know what this event was. This particular show was about, but it's bringing back scary memories and everything. And there's a lot of people out there like that. So I'm gonna be on the next show with you. It was hard, man. It was scary. It was man, I didn't know it was scary. I had nobody to talk to about it. They didn't understand it. And now we talking about that. And I actually had 1,000, I'm not saying 1,000, I had all those nightmares with that bitch riding my back. And I'm trying to get her off my back. I'm trying to get her. I'm a young kid. I didn't have no girlfriends or nothing like that. Why she keep bothering me? And then when I start laying on my back, it went away. So I thought it was like a eating problem where you eat too much and all that. But it may be more than that. So I'm gonna keep on tuning in and find out what was happening when I was a young kid.
Sure.
That caused these things to happen. And I appreciate you. I didn't even know this what this was about.
I didn't think it'd go here either.
Wow, this is beautiful,
Appreciate you
man.
for sharing that, Tim. And Paul, we'll let you take it out, my friend.
Okay, Paul.
Well,
Thank you.
Been an absolute thrill and terrific to talk with you folks. And Dave, it has been absolute blast watching your career take off and your channels. I've listened to most of your shows, and it's spectacular stuff. Reminds me of when we grew up. We used to have to go, because we were out in the country, we had to go to my sister's and record movies on cable and then bring them back and watch them on VHS. So
Sure.
these movies that you talk about have they're really ingrained in me. The Van Dammes and the Chuck Norris movies and so forth. And so yeah, I really appreciate your stuff, and what a thrill. Nice to talk to all of you, and of course Tim.
I just want 5 seconds. I think that you should keep on talking about this because you never know how many children or young people that probably going through something like this, and there might be a name for this. This happened to me years ago, and I don't have it now. So I really appreciate this happening. So I think you should really try to do more with this. I guarantee you, there's a lot of children had the same experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, appreciate Dave Viking. You want to say your final goodbyes, brother, and we'll be out.
Oh, just make sure to tune in every Saturday. Like I mentioned, guys, we're going to be having interesting guests, interesting topics. Thanks so much, Paul, for joining. Thanks for joining, Tim. And then Brian, of course, we're going to be here every week, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. See you guys. Appreciate y'all.
That wasn't bad.
Well, that was interesting. Tim, you got traumatized.
I'm ready to go make some food. But that's
okay.
I've been living with that for a long time.
Yeah, wow.
Really talking about, serious. That bitch was riding my back for all those years, and I was scared. I was scared of her all the time. She riding my back, and I keep doing this all the